Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Back at the desk doing some review things. The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 1 put me at the desk for the first time in a while, and I said, you know what? I haven't had the juice coming out of the theater recently to do my immediate reactions. Like, I just have come out and I've either been thinking about the movie a lot or just not in a place where I felt like I could get one done. It's weird. I just have a lot going on in the world that's kind of throwing me off my game. And I said, after doing the Last of Us review, maybe I should just come back to the desk and do some old school reviews, find my rhythm that way. And this movie is certainly deserving of that treatment because it's a movie I've been waiting since 2016 for. Its predecessor was one of my favorite movies that year. Been wanting a sequel ever since, and finally getting it almost 9 years later. The the expectations were high, and to see it done in a way that once again made it feel unique, made it feel like its own thing, but carried over all of the elements that worked in the first one and added the things that could have made the first one work even better. I was a supremely satisfied audience member walking out of the Dolby early access screening that I got last night. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler free into The Accountant 2. And like I said, the movie that came to us from director Gavin O'Connor and writer Bill Dubuque back in 2016 was one of my favorites of that year. The way that they played with a spy espionage crime thriller and delivered it in just this different cerebral way where your main character is an accountant who has a touch of autism that just makes him brilliant with numbers, and to have him have a military father who was very tough on him, didn't want to baby him because of the autism, and find ways that maybe not have been the healthiest way to go about it, but find ways that allowed him to succeed being the person that he was and gave him the tools to hold his own so he wouldn't be weak or picked on because of it. Just created a character that so effortlessly is able to solve the puzzle that he's given, and then when things get violent, really handle his own in the action in the third act. And everything that was going on, whether it was the stuff on Chris's character, whether it was Ray King and Marybeth Medina trying to figure out who he is, mostly Medina doing that for King. But, that whole thing going on, chasing him while also chasing this, mystery that's going on at this company with money being lost, being funneled back in, and how the person at the head of that company was really getting himself into a situation that he didn't want to be in and uses these security people to kind of start taking out everyone that's involved, only to find out that Jon Bernthal, who's running that, is actually Chris's brother. Like, you get to the end of the movie and you're just like, what a wild ride. And I remember walking out, I think it was with my dad, and I remember just saying to him, I love that. It was so cool, so unique. Only things, could have used more Bernthal because you're in such a suspense, cerebral zone that whole movie. Anytime Bernthal did pop up, his character's got a lot of charm, a lot of charisma, brought a little bit of levity. Could have used more of it. And then when you find out that he's Chris's brother, you're just like, I wish they could have been doing this mission together. And that's the genius of this sequel from Bill Dubuque and Gavin O'Connor, is it does all those things that was present in the first one, but plays with them in different ways, right? Rather than chasing missing money, you have the accountant being brought in to try to help figure out what happened to Ray King, who gets murdered at the beginning of the film. Not a spoiler in the trailer. But you're ultimately chasing what he was working on as, he's retired and is a PI, or doing PI work at least. So you're chasing the missing people that he's been looking for that got him killed. And to bring that stuff all back, but play with it in that way, add in Braxton as a partner in this situation. Like, Medina and Chris need help, and when they do, Chris calls Braxton. You get to have the brother dynamic that was missing the whole movie outside of the flashbacks in the first one. And it's so entertaining, it's so fun, whether they're bickering. And granted, you always understand where Braxton is coming from. Like, he's hurt constantly that Chris just won't reach out to him because Chris is the way Chris is. And because of that, he gives him leniency because all he really wants is just a connection with his older brother. And when Chris gives that to him, you get to live vicariously through Braxton and his joy around seeing his brother in ways that we didn't see in the first movie. And that's the other thing too that's cool with the script is like there's added layers to Chris. The opening scene, he's had like a speed dating type event. So enjoyable to watch. There's a scene at a bar where you do get to experience that joy from Braxton seeing his brother interact with people in ways that he hadn't seen previously. And giving those things to the characters and building them out a little bit more was super enjoyable. And then as you start to solve everything, much like the first movie, we go back to an action heavy third act where after having a little bit of action sprinkled in here and there, you really get to live that military action, as you finish out the mission. And it's just all as enjoyable as the first one, but the added elements that are going on with Chris, that are going on with Braxton, that are going on at the Harbor Neuroscience Institute, the way we go back to Justine's character, right? The girl that Chris grew up with, who was that voice that would constantly call him, voiced by Allison Wright. In this movie, played by a different actor, Allison Robertson doing the physical performance because Justine is nonverbal. I loved being able to get to see more of that relationship. While it's not physical, it's over the phone. Getting to see Robertson as Justine do more things was a lot of fun. But then again, it's that representation of that community and utilizing that community as like an entire group of people at the desk for Chris. It's so enjoyable, and it's one of these added moments that I think for me elevates everything that's going on. And the way that they choose to play with those characters when they're brought in to try to find things or figure things out to help Chris, like you literally just sat there and you're like, everything that I needed more of in the first movie I get, and I get all the things that I loved about the first movie. And when you flip over to what Gavin O'Connor's doing behind the camera, I really love how visually dynamic the movie is. The set pieces and designs are fantastic. The way and different perspectives that he looks at these characters and where he, ends up putting the camera, the cinematography from Seamus McGarvey, the whole movie, like there are some really nice camera tricks. And like I said, it's a very dynamic camera, the whole movie. And that movement, along with the visuals and the scenes that O'Connor crafts out, it just makes the movie so visually engaging. And then I think the thing that O'Connor does better than anything else in the movie is the balancing of tone. That first one, it was all about keeping that suspense and that tension super tight and really going about the movie in a very cerebral way, much like the way Chris's brain works. It kept that tone pretty even the whole movie. This one, there's a lot more fluctuation going on with different things. Like I said, there's more humor, there's more entertainment, and O'Connor never loses what makes this world and weaves those lighter hearted moments into the movie seamlessly, where you are just constantly being engaged and constantly being entertained. And this movie, why maybe it might not be better than the first one for everybody, I think it works at minimum just as well. I think gives us a different type of experience. I also really liked his needle drop choices. Music was a key element in the first one, played with in very similar ways here. But again, different kind of brands of things that are going on in the music world, creating different elements and things that just represent what's on screen really well. And then when you get into some of those more tense moments or more action-driven moments, you get really good scoring that also elevates everything that's going on. And when it comes to the action in the movie, I love how it's sprinkled in throughout the first two acts. Again, you're mostly going through Chris solving this puzzle, but you get these moments where he's got to lay the hurt on some people, or even Medina, Cynthia Addai-Robinson gets to hold her own a couple times in this one, and that's a lot of fun. You bring in this new character that J.K. Simmons, as Ray King kind of reaches out to, named Anaïs, played by Daniella Pineda. This girl crushes in this movie, but when she's got action things going on, really, really cool. The one knock I would say is there are two moments that O'Connor allows to happen off screen. One with Chris kind of trying to reorganize what King was working on, and one with Pineda doing things outside of the bathroom that King is in at the beginning. I really wish we could have seen those things visually happen, but you get so much of those elements throughout the course of the movie that you kind of you're able to forgive it. And then that third action set piece is just marvelous. Like the military action and the gun work and just the choreography and movements and the way that you see Braxton and Chris work so seamlessly with each other, even though they haven't seen each other in years. Like it looks like two guys working together that have worked together day in, day out over years, and they haven't. And it's all that stuff that ties back to their childhood. And that's the thing that I think O'Connor really does a great job with is if you're not going back to the same things as the first one, the way you're able to represent those ideas or things in this one just work really, really well. And that third act finale is so enjoyable, and it is tense, and it is action packed, and everything I think is just really executed quite well. But the thing that, you know, is the best in the movie, it's the performances. I think the performances here are absolutely stellar. I love seeing Affleck step back into the role as Chris. Doesn't skip a beat, picks up right where he left off. And like I said, he gets to play with different things that he didn't get to play with in the first one. And watching him do things that are lighter hearted, more entertaining, more people driven, and interactions with people, like there's a lot of really fun things baked in there. And then he just executes the Chris stuff so well, and just getting to see him be able to interact with more people, you know, his chemistry with Medina, it's wrought with tension and at times conflict, but I like the respect they have for each other and how they do what they do to try to help out something that Ray King was looking at. I love seeing him with Allison Robertson, even though they're never on screen together. The way they talk and interact with each other, it just hits every time. And then the chemistry with Jon Bernthal is absolutely amazing. It was the secret ingredient that was missing in the first one. And I could just watch these two do things, whether, like I said, it's bickering or working together in a big action sequence or just getting to bond a little bit. And watching Bernthal bring all that back and have those moments where he really lets Chris have it, but understands that, like, one, they have a relationship where he can get away with more than other people I think could get away with. Like some of the stuff he says to Chris, I don't think he'd let other people say, but because they're brothers and that relationship feels so real and tangible, it works when they're bickering and you understand how badly he just wants that connection with his big brother. And then when he gets it, the joy that just lights up the room that he's in or the place that he's I mean, there's a moment toward the end where he asks Chris to like pull over for something, and when he comes back in, like his just sheer joy and the way Chris responds to it, like it's just wonderful. And watching these two guys on screen together is just so much fun. And then of course Bernthal was more of like the guy directing traffic in the first movie. He gets his hands dirty and action driven in this one. Really loved what he was bringing. We get a little bit of J.K. Simmons, but he's absolutely excellent. What he sets up as Ray at the beginning really is the launch point for the whole movie, and it was more than I thought we were going to get with him. Cynthia Addai-Robinson crushes again. Like I said, she's got a different dynamic in this one, and seeing her work with Chris and butt heads with Chris, but never get to a place where that's not salvageable or it isn't going to help what they're looking for. Really, really well executed. Allison Robertson and the entire group of kids that work with her to help Chris, how they function, the little games she builds in for them because they're kids, the way that they just all interact with each other in a room with no words. It's so enjoyable to watch, and every time she's on screen, it's a breath of fresh air. And rather than just getting the voice over and over, getting to see her perspective was a lot of fun. And then you have Daniella Pineda. I don't want to say anything about her character because her character is very mysterious, but the things she is asked to do in the movie from an action standpoint, she dominates. And she gets a sequence with Medina that is really tight choreography wise, really wrought with suspense and tension and conflict, and just watching that stuff works so well. And then there's some other elements as you get deeper into the movie where she's just asked to do more, and man, does she land some heavy gut punches. And really anybody that's in here that pops in from the supporting side, I think everybody does a good job. And once again, you just have a well-rounded, really well executed film that is intellectually stimulating, visually stimulating, and more entertaining than the first one, in my opinion. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up. Like I said, I really love everything that's going on with this movie. I love how Dubuque brings elements from the first movie over and adds things that just create character depth and more entertainment and different ways to play with the characters than you did in the first one. And those changes make this movie unique, make it stand on its own. And then behind the camera, Gavin O'Connor really pieces this thing together quite well. He balances his tone really well. The movements that he has, the camera doing, it's super dynamic, it's super engaging. And when you throw in the score and the cinematography and even the needle drops, like everything that's built with this movie and the editing, it's tight and it just constantly moves, never loses your attention. And the performances across the board are all phenomenal, specifically having Affleck and Bernthal working together this time. That was the thing that could have been the secret sauce in the first one, but keeping that as a mystery created a really unique situation. Now that we know that, getting to play with it, exactly what I was hoping for. And for me, I think The Accountant checks just about every box. Couple off camera moments that I wish would have been on camera, but outside of that, this thing is tight and it works. And for me, I'm going 4 out of 5 C Maniacs. The Accountant 2 is right there with the first one, man. This is a franchise that has a really long gap in between movies, but both movies are top-end, quality-made films that I think just work really, really well. I was so happy with this one. The question is, what about you? If you were a fan of the first Accountant, how long have you been waiting for a sequel? How excited were you to get this movie? And if you went and saw the early access screening, did it hit for you? Did it do what you were hoping it was going to do? Did it surprise you with anything? Keep it spoiler free, but I want to know what you're thinking. And if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're going to, are you going to see it in theaters? I highly recommend it. Definitely see it in Dolby because the sound design is also very, very good. And Dolby is always the best spot for sound design. But are you going to see it in the theater? What are you looking forward to? Will you wait for streaming? Anything you guys got, good, bad, indifferent, on The Accountant 2? Put it down below in the comment section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with C-Man anytime. We're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions. We got The Last of Us going on. We got a bunch of other reviews I'm going to try to hit over the course of the week. So you want to be here for that stuff. You just dig the vibe. You want to show a little love and support. Come join C Maniac Nation. It's super easy. Jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man's Cinema Sit Down, I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace.
C-Maniac Nation, you look nervous. Is it the scars? Would you like to know where I got them? No? Well, then maybe you'd like to see another video with the C-Man. How about up here or over here? And if you really dig the C-Man, well, then show him a little love right over there.